Welcome to the December 18th meeting of the Glenville Town Board. Please rise for the invocation and pledge allegiance. Recently, we learned that two members of our community at the McKeel Christian Academy both were diagnosed, two members were diagnosed with receiving sad news of cancer recently. We're a week from Christmas, and I wanted just to take a moment to ask you to take a moment of silence to think about these two individuals and all families in our community during the holidays that are dealing with hard times. The one mother, she's a single mother of two, is diagnosed with breast cancer and is undergoing chemotherapy, and there's a 9-year-old student who is diagnosed with an aggressive childhood cancer who unfortunately has a survival rate of 15% over 5 years. There is a basketball tournament tonight in raising money for them at McKeel. So if you would just take a moment of silence, keep them and all families in need during this holiday season in your prayers. Let us remember the words that the Lord shared with us when he said, "Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go." Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Call roll. Here. 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 We have a fairly busy agenda tonight, a few public hearings, and we also have an add-on resolution that we'll be taking up after the last resolution. After 19, we'll take up the add-on resolution about the New York sewer extension. And then we also will be going to executive session for two issues. One is a legal matter and one is an employee matter. We'll be going to executive session after new business. We do not anticipate coming out and doing any more business tonight, so you're free to stay, of course, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend it because we would have concluded our public business by then. So with that, let's move on to our town council reports. I'll start with my left. Councilman Ryan.
No report today.
Councilman Rosowski.
No reports today, Mr. Supervisor.
Councilman Luan.
Mr. Supervisor, today the town received a bill for the Board of Elections. And with everything that we're going through with tax cap constraints and things with that, this seems to fall kind of in the grass and nobody really pays attention to it. But in my eyes, it's kind of the root of a lot of the problems that we have in the county. And it affects the towns in the city. And that is them not living within the tax cap. And it really puts the towns in a bad situation. There's a resolution that's going to be passed tomorrow night in a special meeting in the county legislature. And this bill is from the 2012 year. And here we are in 2014, almost 2014. The total increase for the election expense is $117,656, or a 7.28% tax increase. The city of Schenectady pays $561,000, town of Rotterdam $381,000, town of Glenville $387,000, town of Niskayuna $291,000, town of Waynesburg $83,000, and town of Princetown $29,000. There's 12 full-time employees. This is just a microcosm of how the county operates. The county bears no expense whatsoever for the Board of Elections. It's put on the backs of the city and all the towns. And my point being is that there's revenue that the county Board of Elections brings in every year with outsourcing certain things to other election districts. that they don't even talk about. So I guess one of the questions is, where does that revenue go? Who gets to keep that money? 2009 expense for the Board of Elections, $1,500,000. 2010, $1,600,000. 2011, $1,616,000. That was an election year, by the way, that's why it was such a small increase. In 2012, $1.7 million. So basically, the town of Glenville has, in the course of 4 years, been charged $50,000 increase, or 14.5% total, with an average increase of 4.63%. And we get hammered here when we have to deal with the financial constraints of the town and live within the tax cap. But the county can just give us a tax bill when we have no say. There's nothing that we can do about it. Short story, the UCC, the Unified Central Dispatch, where we're gonna lose our dispatchers and they're gonna go to a central thing that everybody thinks is a great idea. But in the beginning, Chris and I went to all the meetings in 2010, and Business 101, you look at the financial statement, nothing on it made sense. And all they said to us, don't worry about it, it's gonna work, we know what we're doing. There's 5 bargaining units, they gotta figure somehow to get on the same page. We know it's like to deal with 3, it's very difficult. The point being is, the Board of Elections, 10 years ago, cost the town of Glenville $0. 2012, or 2014, we're getting a bill for $387,000. So in a little over 10 years, it's gone from 0 to almost $400,000. History has a tendency to repeat itself, so I guess this is my last day in the town of Glenville as an elected official. I'm not gonna be able to follow this really anymore, but I guarantee you, in 4 years, we're gonna have the same conversations about central dispatch that we're having now. There's no checks and balances with the county. We all get our chops busted on a regular basis, rightfully so. That's the deal that we took. The biggest problem is the county. There's no checks and balances for that county. Everybody just lets it go. We need this effort here to go to the county and solve these problems, because without them having any kind of restraint or input from the surrounding communities, they are going to keep giving us bills that we're going to get put in a situation we're not going to be able to take care of. So I just thought this was a perfect time for me to bring this to light. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Pittavani.
No report.
So we'll move on to the public hearing scheduled for consideration of the proposed local law to amend several zoning text amendments, most notably the addition of agricultural activities farm at a roadside produce stand. And I believe this really affects most of them down Route 5 corridor. So we'll open that public hearing. Anyone wish to be heard on that matter? Going once, going twice. This is the matter of changing the zoning text amendment for Route 5 to include riverfront recreational commercial zoning. Going 3 times. Public hearing is now closed. Next public hearing we'll open is to hear anyone interested in being heard on the proposed zoning map amendments that would change the zoning of 13 properties from professional residential to community business. The parcels are located on the west side of Saratoga Road between McDonald's and the first parcel south of Oak Hill Drive. So that's right here in our town center. That public hearing is now open. Anyone wish to be heard on that matter? Going once. Okay, we got a few people. So I saw your hand first. Yeah, so we just ask you to come to the podium, state your name and address, and typically we just ask you to leave comments for about 5 minutes.
My name is Suzanne Alabozak, 16 Lincoln Drive.
Ma'am, I'm sorry, can you pull the mic down just so we can get you on? Thank you.
I live at 16 Lincoln Drive, the dead-end street. And I have a couple of questions regarding this proposal. Has there been an environmental committee study yet, and if so, has it been approved? The next one, has the state agreed to create a 4-lane road extension to Social Plaza, which would make the 2 lanes now existing to 4 lanes so that it would be more easily accessible for people going left or right out of Lincoln, or making a left or right-hand turn onto Wilton, or if you're going to put in new proposals that you suggested, a left-hand turn lane of some sort, so there wouldn't be a bottleneck. The other thing is, how can you restrict the notification to just 500 feet? And new homeowners that would possibly buy, there's a few homes for sale, one up near Bank of America. How would this affect that new homeowner? And left and right hand turns now coming out of Lincoln Drive, Wilson and Harding are absolutely abominable. At least 15 to 20 minutes, especially on the weekend.
Thank you. We will get answers to those, and Kevin, who's our planner, economic development director, or I will get back to you with those answers. We don't typically, have a question answer format in the public hearing, but we'll get answers to you.
Okay, thank you.
If you just need contact information, so before you leave, if we get your contact information,
Okay.
thank you. Anyone else wish to be heard on this matter, sir?
Good evening. My name is Stuart Fass. My wife and I recently moved into the property on 13 Ridgewood Lane. We came because Glenville offered a unique opportunity to live next door to our grandchildren.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I think our kids live there too, but I really don't care. We have several concerns and questions. Traffic that this lady just brought up is obviously a prime concern. We've got the increased traffic. Car wash just expanded. Coming in and out of Oak Hill Drive is becoming more and more a challenge. Especially left-hand turns. Adding businesses along that corridor is going to obviously increase traffic. The breaks in traffic come with a red light in front of Target in one direction and in front of Social Plaza in the other, and that gives you a little bit of respite. If you add businesses in between, then there's constant traffic there with absolutely no breaks, and can lead to some very dangerous situations. There's also a question of drainage in the area that ties into the environmental question. The property on the southwest corner of Route 50 and Oak Hill is a swamp. It's a huge mosquito breeding ground, and has given us some real problems with outside environment in the summertime, especially in the springtime. If properties are not drained properly, that's going to increase runoff. Obviously, parking lots added, that sort of thing will increase runoff. That could impact that area as well. And finally, I know that Glenville, I do follow Glenville now that I'm living here. I know you just passed a law enabling sidewalks on the north part of Route 50 north of Glen Ridge Road, and I question whether that is going to be a requirement of development of those properties in a business zone to add sidewalks as well on that south side and give a little bit better walking access. Those are the main concerns at this point, and thank you.
Thank you. And the same thing, we will get answers to those for you. Anyone else wish to be heard on this matter? You have your hand up? Yeah.
My name is Victor Cisnowski, and actually my aunt and father owned the swamp that the gentleman spoke of. And all these concerns with the traffic and everything are actually legitimate concerns. My brother and myself are strongly considering purchasing that property if we could build something on it. And we'd like to build something on that, like, maybe 5 or 6 small retail spaces and some office space above it. That being the case, I think based on what these guys are saying, there's a lot of questions that need to be answered, and they do. And I would like to be a good steward of the community and do things the way that they should be done, because I work here and it's been my home for many years. But I think the reality is an area needs growth. And without growth, all you have is an increase to the property owners in taxes. I lived in Return for a number of years. And I remember when my taxes got to be $12,000 a year, I sold the house. Now the guy's paying, from my understanding, $22,000 a year. And my feeling is once it's a pickle, it'll never become a cucumber again, and Route 50 needs to develop to reduce the impact of taxes on the homeowners. But it has to be done responsibly. And that's all I have to say. Thanks.
Thank you. This is a pretty busy week for you to be out here talking.
You're right.
May 32nd. Anyone else wish to be heard on this matter? Mr. Martin.
Jim Martin, 30 Banker Avenue, Town Board elect. Chris asked me to start attending the planning board meeting, so I did. Went to this particular meeting. Planning board discussed this item, and I'm sure Kevin will have a more detailed report than I, but basically the feelings of the board were that some attention needs to be paid to the buffering along the rear of these lots where they adjoin what will continue to be a residential neighborhood. So I just wanted to report that. They gave it a very thoughtful, consideration during their discussion, and that's basically the message back. I'm sure, like I said, Kevin will have a more detailed report.
Thank you, Jim. Actually, if anyone doesn't mind, maybe we could ask Kevin, I should have done this to begin with, is just have you come up and just quickly, what is the difference we're gonna see between the two zoning, opportunities, the two zoning?
Difference between what's existing and what's
Yeah,
proposed?
what's gonna
Okay.
be the space.
With the existing zoning is professional residential. It's mainly professional offices and single and two-family homes that are allowed, and some service-type uses. Under community business is the next grade of commercial district up in terms of intensity. The main difference is in community business, retail is allowed up to 20,000 square feet, and restaurants, but not including fast food. So you've got intensification in that regard, and a few more offices, or a broader variety of offices are allowed. No automotive, and 20,000 square foot is the limit for building size.
So the biggest change would be potential for retail and non-fast food restaurant.
Right.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to be heard in this public hearing? Yes, ma'am.
My name is Chris Cameron. I live on Harding Boulevard. I have many of the same concerns regarding traffic, drainage, and the gentleman who mentioned taxes. I pretty much live in the south end of the Target parking lot, which I don't believe that development is going to help my taxes go down at all for quite some time. Not sure that any other development will. But in looking at this map, I'm seeing Wilson, Harding, and Lincoln being completely engulfed by apartments and multifamily developments and businesses. So my concern is what's going to happen with our little corner of the world in the future? Because this to me kind of raises a red flag that that little parcel, at some point the town's going to want to do something with that too. So I'm a little concerned about that. And again, same concerns regarding traffic. If any of you would like to visit me on a Saturday morning or at 5 o'clock in the evening and then try to turn left onto Route 50, I'd say leave yourself an extra at least 10 minutes. Same thing in the morning. If you have to go left on Route 50 off of Wilson or Lincoln, it can take a long time. And the merge lane from Target merges in, and I can't tell you how many times I've almost been rear-ended trying to turn left to get onto Wilson, just to get home, because people aren't paying attention or merging too quick. So adding more traffic in that area is going to be a potential nightmare. So those are my main concerns.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to be heard on this matter? this year.
Keith Burmaster. Where my concern is not the traffic, that's always been there, and sooner or later you guys are gonna figure that one out. But when the zoning changes, how does our tax base change?
Yeah, I mean, again, we can answer that question. Public hearing isn't a question and answer
Okay,
format.
okay.
But theoretically, it does because you're bringing in more business that can then diversify the tax base. Now, I think what was alluded to on the Target project, that's not gonna help us really because the county tends to hand out pilots, which means that, you know, it might be going out, but which means they don't have to pay taxes for 5, 10 years, whatever they hand out. We don't have authority to do that. That's the county. So the theory is that we're trying to diversify our tax base with more commercial to bring to, so that more of that tax base shifts off the resident to the business owner. That's kind of the principle we're working towards. I don't know if that makes sense or not.
Well, I understand that.
Yeah, I don't answer your
I
question.
just was wondering about the tax rate there.
So that's theoretically, this would allow for more retail or residential, or I'm sorry, non-fast food restaurant. They could theoretically then maybe bring more, perhaps, more commercial opportunities into that area.
Does the tax base change right away to the owner now, or does it change to the new guy?
No, nothing will change on your taxes now, no. Not at all.
Okay.
But we can set up a time perhaps to answer some of these questions in more detail. Kevin or I can be available.
Okay. Yes, thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to be heard on this matter? Going once, going twice. Public hearing is now closed. The last public hearing is a continuation of a public hearing that began at the last board meeting. I will reopen and reconvene that public hearing for anyone interested in being heard for proposed local law, adding chapter 6 supervisor to the code of Glenville. That is now open. Does anyone wish to be heard on that matter? Going once, going twice. Okay, we got 2 hands. Why don't we go with you first? You're closer.
Yeah, my name is Andrew DePan.
Okay, I'm sorry. Right, I got that. Thank you. I'm sorry, yes.
Okay, my name is Andrew DePan, and I live at 16 Berkeley Road. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I didn't have a chance to attend the other meetings. I just wanted to say that I did vote for you guys. The reason I voted for you is because I believe you're carrying Glenville in the proper direction. However, I do not agree with just passing a law to make the supervisor position full-time. I believe that that should be left up to the citizens of Glenville, and that a vote should be taken, and they should decide whether or not it should be a full-time position. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Anyone else, sir? You have your hand up? Oh.
Hi, I'm Emil Jarzinski from Spring Road. I've been to a couple of these sessions so far on this topic to be an informed citizen and to understand more what's going on. But I have to say, with all respect to everyone who's expressed an opinion, a concern, a question, for me, I've not heard a valid argument against the proposal. I've not heard one thing said that would make me not want to support it. From where I stand, I see an efficient, effective, well-run town government. I see a supervisor's office that works well with the town board. I see growth in the town, both new businesses locating, existing businesses expanding. And that says to me that they must like being here. We must be doing something right. And I see smart zoning. I see all these businesses in Route 50 and Freeman's Bridge Road corridor, so that we know where the businesses are, and so other neighborhoods stay quiet and green and safe, which is why I chose to live here. So it seems we have a system that works well. The proposal, I think, is a good one. The supervisor takes on a broader role. Jamie fortunately stays on and to help the transition. Net salary sum is 0. It doesn't cost us anymore. So it just sounds like a good idea, and I do think it's a good idea. So, from my view, my recommendation to the town board is to support and pass the proposal.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else wish to be heard on this matter? Going once, going twice. Public hearing is now closed. Thank you. And we'll move to privilege of the floor. We have some people who have signed up, so we'll start with the people who have signed up. And then anyone wishes to be heard after that, just raise your hand and we'll call you up. But I have the first person, Stuart Bass.
I spoke already, thank you.
Okay. So then we have Jim Velkovic.
Good evening, James Valkovic, 35 Joyce Lane. I'd just like to take a couple minutes and privilege the floor. One, to thank Mr. Blount. Mr. Blount, your service, your enthusiasm got me involved in this town, the local development corporation, small business economic development, GBPA, a couple other things. You helped me, introduce me to all these fine people up here. I just want to thank you for all your time and your service. It's a lot of fun. I know you're not going anywhere. So
I'm sorry I did that to you.
I'd also like to thank Mr. McFarland here, your keen sense of humor, your sharp wit. I'm going to miss very much. So I just want to make sure we got that.
Thank you. The next person is Dick Eustace.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Town board people. I want to join Jim Valkovic in recognizing our mentor, grandfather, godfather, Alan Blount, and the outstanding job that Alan has done for this town over the last 5 years. I've only been involved for about 2 years now in local development, and I've seen firsthand how well this process works. And Alan has been a big part of it. And I wish to congratulate him on his, now I guess, retirement. And I'm very encouraged that he's going to stay around and counsel us further on these matters, because we need all the help we can get. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Eustace. Anyone else wish to be heard at privilege of the floor? That no one else has signed up? Anyone else? Mr. Murphy.
Just wanted to add one additional thing from the planning board meeting the other night, and I don't think enough is made of it, and since we have a wider audience here tonight, I think it should be said. The other night at the planning board meeting, there was approved a 151,800 square foot mixed-use project in our business park for a warehouse, office space, and light manufacturing. That is a huge, huge project for this community. And one that we should be very proud of. And what I was most proud of is hearing that that project was approved, and I want to emphasize, with no loss of quality review, thorough review, and keen interest from our planning board members. But it was approved in 28 days in the state of New York. That is remarkable. This is a very big project for this community, and more importantly is indicative of the fine work done from planning staff through our volunteers on our planning board. It's a wonderful project. And I understand from the developer and the representatives from Metroplex that were present that there is a potential for a tenant coming in very soon. And so that is a great project, potentially very meaningful employment for this community and our residents. And I just think that needed to be said, and I want the wider community to hear the fine job that the people in these positions are doing. It's a real credit to this community.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to be heard tonight? Yes, sir.
My name is Steve Marsh. I live at 109 Houston Street in Scotia. At the last town board meeting, the board complimented those who stayed for the entire meeting. Since I'd remained for the entire meeting, I thought it was kind of them to express their gratitude for those who stayed. It appeared to me, though, that some of the members of the board then continued to criticize those who left the meeting early, with some particularly heavy criticism for those who left early after speaking during privilege of the floor. If I have misinterpreted the words or the tone in which they were delivered, or the body language of any board member as criticism where none was intended, then I offer my apologies. The people who attend these public meetings are exercising their right to peaceably assemble. Those who speak during the privilege of the floor exercise their right to seek redress from our government in the form of voicing their complaints or seeking some form of assistance. Those who speak also exercise their right to speak their ideas and opinions freely. I will never claim to be a constitutional scholar, but I don't recall where the document states that the people have those rights, but only if they stay for the entire meeting. I don't believe that we can be sure of the circumstances that cause an individual to leave a board meeting early. A gentleman may receive a text message from his wife saying she's ill and needs him to come home. A lady may be a single mother, and the meeting has run past the time that she agreed with her sitter, so she must go home to take care of her children. Most people who speak before the board must make a great effort to overcome one of their greatest fears, the fear of public speaking. I would like to suggest that the board support and not criticize people who speak during the privilege of the floor, no matter how long the speaker stays after the meeting. The privilege of the floor is one of the board's best means to understand how the public feels about the board's performance. It's better than a telephone conversation and far better than an email exchange. Criticizing speakers who are well-mannered and sincere can create the impression that the board wants to discourage the public from addressing the board with their concerns. People who come to this meeting and choose to speak have the right to assemble here, to present their concerns and opinions to the board, and to speak freely while doing so. I would also ask respectfully for the board to encourage people to exercise these rights, along with the right and the liberty of people to come and go as they please. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to be heard this evening? Privilege of the floor going once, going twice. Privilege of the floor is now closed. We move to supervisors' comments to the board. We have an extra microphone here. Who claims ownership of this microphone? Whose is this? Oh, that's yours. Okay. Just wondering. Just really quickly, I have a few, really 3 items I just wanted to address relatively quickly as we get to the end of the year. I'll save my sad farewell to Elle for the end because it might invoke some tears and I don't want you to cry just yet. But as we get towards the end, this is our last meeting of the year, obviously, and I do want to wish you all, first of all, a Merry Christmas for those of you who celebrate Christmas a week from today, and Happy New Year. We won't see each other again until our swearing-in ceremony here, January 1st at 1 o'clock. Public's invited to attend, where myself, Sid Ramatar, Jim Martin and Tom Capola will be sworn in. And then our organizational meeting will be on January 8th, where we'll make all our appointments for the year and do our normal stuff that we normally do to get going for the year. So I think it's a good time to look at really three areas, and I want to focus on, first of all, the strategic plan, which is coming together quite nicely. It's an aggressive plan this year. We didn't have our work session last week, so we didn't have time to talk about it, but I've talked to you individually about it. I've talked to the department heads, the committee chairs, Jamie and Mike and Jason, and really a lot of the staff. There's a lot here. I understand that people say, well, don't put too much on the plan, but what we really want to do is put some short-term goals on there. We want to put some medium-term goals, and then some things that are a little bit of a stretch. As you know, the past 4 years we've been doing this, there's been things on there from year to year that just stay on there because we haven't gotten to them yet. But they need to be there. We need to talk about them. We need to start thinking about how we're going to address some of these issues going forward. The plan should be ready by the organizational meeting, so we'll have it for that. It's just being tweaked now. The three major focus areas, I would say, of the plan, and I think you all have already seen it and have had input into it, so you know. This is going to be a big year for technology implementation, we believe. We've looked at a lot of different areas where we're going to implement new technologies, particularly if we do lose the UCC. We've had a conversation with a variety of department heads about how we can use technology to maybe replace some of the things they do, not everything, but some of the things that they do. The second big item on the agenda, and we've talked about this through the course of this full-time supervisor opportunity, is the operational changes and the efficiencies we're going to have to look at. We are, and I've said it many times at many different meetings, but it bears repeating, we potentially can lose 36 employees out of 90 this year. That is a significant organizational challenge. We already started with one who's filed his retirement papers. There's more behind him. When you consider the UCC going, there's another 11 there. We've got a lot to tackle this year organizationally. Doesn't mean we're just going to replace positions, doesn't mean we're going to keep doing things the way we've always done it. So it's an opportunity, like we did with this position, to find a way to do things differently, more efficiently, and hopefully a little cheaper, which we did in this circumstance as well. And lastly, the big item I think you're going to see in there is the infrastructure challenges that we have. And infrastructure means a lot of things. Sewers, water, drainage, ditching around districts around the town, and also our physical space. Not just what do we do here. We're at a point where we need to either make some major investments in our facilities or look for different opportunities. And of course, parks. There's a lot on there for parks. Councilman Ramatar, I think, had some very good ideas and some good additions to it. So this should be ready shortly for us to adopt at the organizational meeting, and it's going to be a busy year, but I think it's an exciting opportunity, an exciting time for the town. I also wanted to mention that I had a chance to spend some time with the CEG Local Government Council, and we went over a legislative agenda that the Association of Towns is going to be presenting to the state legislators as they come back to session. And I just want to share with you what was adopted there. We all had a vote on it. There's actually quite a bit. I'm just going to go over really quickly the ones that are most important. Number one item that we adopted was calling for mandate relief. You touched on it tonight, Councilman Boulant, with what happens with the county passing the bill down, but we also get a lot of bills passed down from the state. A lot of things we have to do, they don't fund us for, but they make us do it and it costs us money. So we're going to continue to talk about that. But taking that opportunity just to talk about what you talked about, Al, was that our cap, the CPI, stands at 1.37. So for our 2015 budget, it's not a 2% tax cap we're facing right now. It's a 1.37% tax cap because it's either the 2% or inflation, whichever is lower. That's $118,000 in new spending in this town. It will be allowed in 2015. Now, our election expense is going up $25,000 right off the bat. So on top of that, then we're going to have pension increase, which we always have. We're going to have health insurance increase, which we always have. Our tax cap is going to be hit pretty quickly in 2015. And a lot of that has to do with the mandates that are handed down. So that's going to be the conversation that we're going to have at the state legislators. And this year I'm gonna have an opportunity to be more involved in that. So I'm gonna bring a little more, I hope, passion and juice to the group when we talk about these things, because they've been talking about them for years, and I'm gonna make sure to make it a point to be there this year as well. One of the things I want to advocate for is to allow publication of legal notices to be done online, not in newspapers anymore. It seems more and more people are getting their news online, and they're looking to eliminate and a mandate of it. So, I mean, it's pretty costly to put those public notice hearings in the paper. You do it free online and still reach the same amount of people. A big one that I'm very interested in is the abandoned property registry. We have one of those in the town. The state, we're lobbying the state to have a statewide registry that would force mortgage, particularly in a mortgage foreclosure situation, to provide the contact information. We all know how important that is in our town. A lot of the foreclosed properties, we don't know who owns them, because what happens is the banks don't file the deeds, unfortunately. So that's a big one that they're going to be looking at. Pension reform is another one. And then increasing CHIPS funding to the towns and the villages. And then lastly, what I was interested in, and Jim, I think you'd be interested in this, is they want to lobby the state to allow more opportunities for smaller projects in the CFA application. They're finding that only bigger projects are being funded, but smaller communities that have good projects, they're just not big enough to make a big enough impact for the CFA decision makers. They want to make sure they set aside a different level of CFA for towns like ours that might do good things with a smaller award. So I think that's pretty good too. Lastly, just quick, I know you got the year-end projections. I want to just point out we're in pretty good shape. You know, it's always difficult to say that because you never know what's around the corner, but our projected surplus in the town general fund, the A fund, is almost $200,000 this year, without using any of our fund balance appropriations. The revenue highlights on that is that our mortgage tax revenues will finish $200,000 above budget. We had a better year on mortgage revenue than we thought. A large portion of that is Patriot Square, so it's a one-timer. It's not a trend that we can count on. Something around 70, 80,000 of that is a one-time project. Doesn't mean we're not going to have more one-time projects, but as of late, the trends have come back down on mortgage tax, by the way. It's not where it's been earlier in the year. Our town outside fund, the B fund, is $95,000 surplus without using any of our fund balance appropriation. And there, the big revenue highlight is the building permit fees are on pace to be over $85,000 budget this year. So things are picking up. We're building in Glenville, obviously. It's the economic development activity that Jim and Alan have talked about. Our franchise fee revenue, though, is down 10% or $10,000 below budget. We're seeing more people either scale back their Time Warner services or maybe cancel altogether. So we're losing some revenue there. And our highway fund is on track with the budgeted fund balance appropriation. Part of it to be used to cover a small funding deficit for that front loader we bought with cash, if you remember. So that was the fund balance allocation was used to cover that. So with that, that's all I have, other than I just want to announce that I've enrolled myself in Town Hall Boot Camp. I've talked to the department heads, and Linda, I think you're the first one to get me Friday. So I'm going to be taking a crash course in every department in the town. I figure if we're going to start looking at everything, we need to really get in there and understand them at a higher level than what I currently do. So Friday I'll be spending time, 4-hour shift with the clerk. If anyone wants to come in and get a marriage license or something, I'll be there for that. I'll be spending another 4-hour shift later with the assessor. That's Friday, and then on January 2nd, the building department, and then the receiver of taxes. January 3rd, engineering. January 6th, planning. January 7th, I'll be at court night, and hopefully not a plaintiff, or a defendant, I should say. January 8th, I'll be in the police department, and January 9th, I'll spend time with the highway department. So I call that my crash course boot camp. They're going to put me to work, and no favoritism, right, Linda? You're going to make me do real work? All right, type up the minutes and, anyone have any questions or comments? Okay. Okay, so we move on to Resolution 10. Okay. Accepting the donation of 7 acres of land. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Moved in second. Any discussion?
Yes, Mr. Supervisor. Mr. Larry Lewis, owner of the property at 50 Edmond Road, which is basically contiguous to Indian Meadows, said that he wants to donate 7 acres to the town. Town's Park Planning Commission recommends the acceptance of the property. The said property is already undergoing seeker review through GECC Planning and Zoning Commission, resulting in negative declaration. And the town board believes that the acceptance of a parcel will result in enhancement of Indian Meadow Park, provide greater passive recreational activities, and the property, with the stipulation, the property cannot be sold or put to non-park use without approval of New York State legislator and the governor. As long as the property, as long as we believe that the donor has good title to the parcel, there are no liens, no taxes, or claims of record, the town should obtain title insurance to protect itself against any future claims that might arise. The only consideration to accepting the property is to pay the donor, Town of Glenville, the proportionate share of the 2013-14 school taxes to the amount of $500. So this resolution is basically to approve acceptance of the donation of that property, 7 acres. And at the same time, the town board, on behalf of the town residents and Park Planning Commission, would like to thank Mr. Larry Lewis and Mr. Ricky Lewis for their generosity and thoughtfulness in donation of these 7 acres.
Thank you. I believe it's going to be a nice addition to our parks, and I think we have a lot of plans for trail enhancements and things like that through there. So it's very generous of them, and I'm very appreciative of the Lewis's, and I think it's going to be a nice addition to the parks. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, please report the vote.
Councilman Delotte?
Yes.
Councilman Pepperoni?
Yes.
Councilman Ramichardt?
Yes.
Councilman Wozzachowski?
Yes.
Supervisor Pettsley?
Yes, resolution passes. Next resolution, resolution 11, reappointing seasonal worker to recreational tenant. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Moved in second. Any discussion?
Yes, Mr. Supervisor, every year we hire a seasonal worker to handle, to do maintenance and supervision of Indian Meadows Park. That's in the winter months. And therefore, it's resolved that Michael Oshbaum of 12 Irving Road, Scotia, is hereby appointed to the position of a seasonal recreation attendant effective 12/20/13 to 3/31/14 at the budgeted rate of $8 per hour with no benefits.
Excellent. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, please report the vote.
Councilman Delotte?
Yes.
Councilman Pepperoni?
Yes.
Councilman Ramichardt?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wozzachowski?
Yes.
Supervisor Pettsley?
Yes, resolution passes. Next resolution, resolution 12, accepting the independently audited 2012 financial statements. Do I have a motion? So moved. Do I have a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Just for sake of discussion, as you know, the town retained the Bondo Group Certified Public Accountants to complete an independent audit of the town's financial statements fiscal year ending December 31st, 2012. And where this was completed on December 3rd, 2013, and was presented to the town board on December 11th, 2013, we now hereby formally accept the independently audited financial statements for the 2012. Do I have any discussion or comments? Seeing none, please record the vote.
Councilman Delotte?
Yes.
Councilman Pepperoni?
Yes.
Councilman Ramichardt?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wozzachowski?
Yes.
Supervisor Pettsley?
Yes, resolution passes. Next, resolution 13, accepting the audit of the town court records of 2012 to comply with the Uniform Justice Court Act. Do I have a motion? So moved. Do I have a second?
Second.
Moved in second, and just for sake of discussion, this is essentially the same resolution. The court was also audited, and this is formally accepting the audit for the Uniform Justice Court Act. And I think this was also done by the Bondo Group, if I'm correct. No, it was not. Who did this one?
We did this one internally.
Oh, internal, okay.
Next year, we're going to engage Bondio to do it,
Okay.
kind of on a rotating basis is how we're going to do it.
Thank you.
Supervisor Buchanan.
No, it wasn't. I'm not going to the comptroller's office. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, please report the vote.
Councilman Delotte?
Yes.
Councilman Pepperoni?
Yes.
Councilman Ramichardt?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wozzachowski?
Yes.
Supervisor Cassidy?
Yes. Resolution passes. Next, resolution 14, adopting local law number 8, adding chapter 6, town supervisor to the code of the town of Glenville. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second?
Moved in second. Any discussion? Perhaps I should, we discussed this quite a lot actually, but perhaps it takes a moment. We should pause and have some final comments before we act. This would change, add a new chapter 6 to the town supervisor, the code of the town of Glenville. The town board held a public hearing on December 4th, continued it on December 18th. At the time, all parties of interest were afforded an opportunity to be heard and publicly comment to the adoption of the local law. I would also add that we allowed for public comment at the November 6th, not the 6th, the 20th, or the 6th, okay, board meeting. And we had a public forum as well at the senior center in addition. This resolution would adopt the chapter 6. And I'll read what it would add to chapter 6. The elected office of the town of Glenville supervisor shall be considered a full-time position. The salary of the elected full-time supervisor for calendar year 2014 shall be fixed in the amount of $83,000 and therefore shall be established by the town board in the annual budget process. The intent of this is the administration of municipal governments in New York State has become increasingly more complex due to changes in laws, rules, regulations at the federal and state levels. In recognition of these factors, the town has experimented with a full-time administrator and a full-time director of operations, each of whom was delegated administrative duties of the part-time supervisor and acted on his behalf at his direction. It is the sense of the town board that a full-time elected supervisor would be more directly responsive to the people and the town board. In addition, the town of Glenville has seen a period of strong growth and development, making a full-time leadership of the supervisor more imperative. It is further the sense of the town board that the savings in salaries and benefits will result from this more efficient form of government. And so, when we talk about now the process, because it's been brought up here tonight, about the permissive referendum, there are really two opportunities in the state of New York to have a referendum. One's permissive and one is mandatory. There are certain situations when law dictates it to be a mandatory referendum. And I'll give you an example. When we moved the receiver of taxes from an elected position to an appointed position, disregarding has nothing to do with part-time, full-time, but it went from elected to an appointed. That was a mandatory referendum. We had to have a referendum on that. This particular change is really the discretion of the board, but because it came after the budget was already submitted, the tentative budget, or the preliminary budget, it requires a local law. The local law is the first step. Passing a local law is the first step to allowing for a permissive referendum. The town board does not have the authority to call a permissive referendum. We cannot say, let's have a referendum on any item. Only the people can call for a referendum. So the first step is to pass the local law for the potential for a permissive referendum to be allowed within 45 days. So that's kind of the process. That's where we are. That's what the board's doing now, is moving forward with the local law. It will not take effect for 45 days after the election unless a valid petition for a permissive referendum is filed with the town clerk within such time, and should only take effect upon approval of electors of the town of Glenville. So that's what we're voting on tonight, is passing the local law. And I know it's been a long process. I don't know if anyone has any questions, comments, concerns, or thoughts they'd like to share at this particular time. It's been somewhat of a personal journey, I think, for me in a lot of ways. I feel as though we as a town board, I think one of the residents mentioned it, when they came up here, really thought about a proposal that was going to save money, that was going to increase efficiency, that was going to restore the town supervisor's role back to what it traditionally always has been, except for these past few years. And I think it puts the supervisor back in better connection with people. And it's something that I've always talked about, I've always believed we needed. I talked about it during the campaign. Some people disagree with that, but it was talked about, in a public forum. We've gotten here to this point after a lot of input from residents and a lot of consideration of this board. And it wasn't an easy decision necessarily, but yet it's one that I think we all knew along that was coming at some point. The saddest piece of it, I think, is that we are losing Jamie as our full-time director of operations. Very thankful that he's agreed to come back in a part-time role to help us through all these changes that we see coming ahead. But it's something that I think is needed to move the town forward with all the changes and all the growth we have, and I think it's just going to allow me to be a more active supervisor in the town. So with that, any questions or comments, or we good to go? Seeing none, please report the vote.
Councilman Blunt.
Yes.
Councilman Catalani.
Yes.
Councilman Ramichardi.
Yes, but I just do want to comment at this point, this process, and we've talked about it for a long time, becomes part of an interviewing process for a position, and obviously we have to, just like any position that's being, positions open and we need to hire someone, or anyone needs to hire someone, regardless of what that company is. That company or town or entity is looking for the most qualified, best candidate for that position. I think we're all on the town board very, very qualified in looking and evaluating who those candidates might be. At this point, we've basically done that. We've done our homework. We've spent the last 4 years looking at what the opportunities are, who this individual could be. And Chris, I've got to tell you, you're the best choice. So I would not be voting yes if I did not think you were the best choice. So, yes.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Wozzowski.
Yes.
Supervisor Kessler.
I'm going to abstain, although I can vote on this. I feel as though the conflict of this dealing individually and specifically with my position suggests that I should abstain. So the resolution passes. Next resolution, thank you. The next resolution 15, authorizing various 2013 budget amendments. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second?
Moved and seconded. There is about 5 pages of a variety of budget amendments. This is really cleanup stuff. You all have had it and seen it for the residents. We're not going to go through the 5 pages of budget changes, but this is really end of year stuff. So if this line has a little bit overage, or that line has a little too less, too much, too little, we move things around. We typically do this in a cleanup meeting at the end of the year, but Jason was efficient enough to get it done before our last meeting, so thank you. It's generally housekeeping amendments in the budget. If anyone has any specific questions about any particular line item, you might want to address Jason now, but other than that, I think you gave us a pretty good overview of the big ones as to why there's some of these bigger ones. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, please report the vote.
Councilman Blunt.
Yes.
Councilman Catalani.
Yes.
Councilman Ramichardi.
Yes.
Councilwoman Wozzowski.
Yes.
Supervisor Kessler.
Yes, resolution passes. Next resolution 16, authorizing the supervisor to enter into a contract with Yeager and Flynn Associates. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Moved in second. Any discussion?
Yes, Mr. Supervisor. Currently, the town of Glenville utilizes Yeager and Flynn Associates to perform health insurance brokerage and other services related to employee benefits. Such services performed by Yeager and Flynn involve protected health information, PHI, which require compliance with HIPAA. Pretty standard. In order to perform such services in accordance with HIPAA, it's necessary to enter into an agreement that sets forth the obligations of the town and Yeager and Flynn regarding use of employee protected health information. The attorney of the town finds that it's in the best interest of the town to enter into the agreement in order to set forth the understanding between the parties on HIPAA-related issues. So be it resolved that Supervisor Town of Glenville hereby authorized to execute a contract with Yeager and Flynn Associates for the administration of health insurance and related professional services for calendar year of 2014.
Any questions or comments? Seeing none, please report the vote.
Councilman Blunt.
Yes.
Councilman Catalani.
Yes.
Councilman Ramichardi.
Yes.
Councilwoman Wozzowski.
Yes.
Supervisor Kessler.
Yes, resolution passes. Next resolution 17, authorizing the supervisor to enter into a contract with Repeat Business Systems. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second? Second. Moved in second. Any discussion?
Yes, Mr. Supervisor, the town of Glenville utilizes Rocket Science Solutions for their information technology service through an existing contract. The town is pleased with the services provided by Rocket Science Solution and wishes to continue utilizing the company for information technology services. Rocket Science has recently been acquired by Repeat Business Solutions. So this resolution is for us to continue the contract with Repeat Business Solutions. It is budgeted, there is no increases, everything is the same as it was with Rocket Science.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, please record the vote.
Councilman Delotte?
Yes.
Councilman Catalani?
Yes.
Councilman Ramichardi?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wozzachowski?
Yes.
Supervisor Pettsley?
Yes, resolution passes. Next resolution, resolution 18, setting the time and date for the organizational meeting for January 8th. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second?
Moved in second. Any discussion? This, as I said, will set the organizational meeting for January 8th at 7:30, where we conduct our annual organizational meeting for 2014. January 15th at 7:30 will be our first work session, and January 22nd at 7:30 will be our regular town board meeting. Seeing no other comments or questions, please record the vote.
Councilman Delotte?
Yes.
Councilman Catalani?
Yes.
Councilman Ramichardi?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wozzachowski?
Yes.
Supervisor Pettsley?
Yes, resolution passes. Next, resolution 19, approving town department reports. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Moved in second. Any questions, comments, concerns, changes? This is for which departments?
For dog control, economic development, planning, justice department, and town clerk's office.
Seeing none, please record the vote.
Councilman Delotte?
Yes.
Councilman Catalani?
Yes.
Councilman Ramichardi?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wozzachowski?
Yes. Yes, I'm good, I'm sorry.
Supervisor Pettsley?
Yes, resolution passes. Next resolution, our last resolution will be an add-on, which is add-on 1. And this is a resolution, as I mentioned, it's been around here a couple times on the extension of the sewer district for what we call Indian Brook Extension. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Moved in second. Any discussion?
Mr. Supervisor, this resolution is for the approval of the extension of Sewer District 9, extension number 12 to Sewer District 9 in the town of Glenville, which shall include the property commonly known as 74 Van Buren Road. It is hereby authorized to be constructed within the district, and the amount proposed to be expended, including the expenses incurred in connection with the establishment of this extension, is to be fully borne by the developer and at no cost to the town and the users of the district. Permission of the state comptroller is not required with the extension. With respect to the extension of this district, due to the cost of the project, the town clerk is hereby authorized and directed within 10 days after the adoption of this resolution in order to file certain copies with the State Department of Audit and Control in Albany and in the upcoming clerk of the county in which the town is located, which would be Schenectady. This resolution also comes with one qualifier, that would be this resolution in order shall only take effect once the town of Glenville Commissioner of Public Works has received written approval of the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation that has approved the extension as required by the DEC's agreement and order with the city of Schenectady. Which means basically we are waiting for DEC approval, and this will not take effect until that is received by the town.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, please record the vote.
Councilman Delotte?
Yes.
Councilman Catalani?
Yes.
Councilman Ramichardi?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wozzachowski?
Yes.
Supervisor Pettsley?
Yes, resolution passes. Before we take entertain a motion to go into executive session, I do want to get to new business, so I'll start on my left with Councilman Ramichardi.
Nothing new, but I'd like to just thank Councilman Delotte for his last 4 years as a friend and council member. I know you're not going anywhere, but I've got to say that you've really been a source of strength for everyone. You've said things that we were a little hesitant to say, and thank you for it. And you were great to work with.
Gets me in trouble sometimes.
Councilman West.
I don't have any new business, however, I would also like to extend my sincerest thanks and just honor working with Alan over the last 4 years. Like Sid said, he's done a lot for the town. We've all tried to work together, and Alan's point of view is often just very important being a business owner in our community. Sorry to see you go. Happy Jim will be joining us in January, but you'll be missed.
Councilman Levine.
You don't want to.
Oh, Councilman Levine. Sorry.
You know, I have mixed emotions. You know, it's been an interesting time. You know, people get up and voice their opinion, and one thing that I'd say the last 6 months for us has been good is we've had a full audience, whether you agree with us or you disagree with us, at least we've got an audience, because the 3 years, you know, it's the 3 people in the front. And, you know, we listen, and we try to do our best. And I will say that, you know, my agenda when I got on was economic development. And that was what my strong suit was, and everything we said we were gonna do, we did. And contrary to a few people's beliefs, we are a very transparent board here, and I've met a lot of good people. And it's, you know, I got mixed emotions, but I'm gonna write off now. Jim, it's all yours, bud.
Councilman Levine.
I have no new business, but I too would like to thank Alan, and certainly for his expertise in grooming me into the board. And I will say that, Alan, I know that your heart is always in the right place for the town, no matter what's going on. And I too thank you for your service, and we're going to miss you. And I have one other comment that I would like to make too. I know at the last meeting, I certainly thank those who stayed to the end. I do not believe I said anything negative about those who left, but if somebody did interpret it that way, I sincerely apologize for that, because I certainly didn't mean it that way.
Thank you. Just a few closing comments for executive session. First, to the residents here who came out from Lincoln and Wilson and Harding and Oak Hill and any of the neighborhoods affected or had any questions about the zone change on Route 50. I thank you for your comments. There were a lot of questions in there. We will get those questions answered, but feel free at any time. If you go to our webpage, townofglenville.org, my email is right there. Click it on. Even if you want to write, just call me with your phone number, and we can talk about any of the questions you may have. There's a lot there, a lot of questions. Kevin is always available as well, our planner, but you know, if you want to get the neighborhood together here in this room and go over some of it, address it as one group where we can answer questions, we'd be glad to set something up too. So please let us know if you're interested in doing something like that. We'll get it set up, and we'll invite the board if they would like to come. To Al, you know, like they say, it's been a long, strange trip with you, let me tell you right now. When we first met, I didn't know how this was going to work out. He said, boy, they couldn't find anyone any different than me, could they? And we definitely were the odd couple, but I think we found a way to work together. You've been, you know, Sid talks about your straight talk. Sometimes it was to me, so I've been on the end of that straight talk before, Sid. So, but anything we needed from you, anytime we asked you to do something, anytime we said that, you know, this project's important, you went out and you did it, you got it accomplished. And you're a doer, and in this business, there's not a lot of doers. So I always admired you for that. I wish you put on a tie once in a while, but that's not going to happen.
They tried tonight, but it didn't work.
But we could always count on you to do what's best for the town and to get projects done. And we're not going to miss you, because I know you and I have had conversations about how we're going to keep you engaged. So you'll be back.
I saw the strategic plan, Chris.
Did you see it?
Yeah, I lost the election.
My name's on everywhere. Your name might be on some of it. And I just want to mention, you know, Jamie, you're not going anywhere either. I know this is your last meeting as a full-timer anyway, but you're coming back to us. But I'd be remiss if I didn't say, you know, this is really, some of the residents have come up and talked about how much is going on in this town and how we're moving ahead and how we're having a positive impact on things. Jamie has had as much to do with that as anybody in this room or in this town. This has been a partnership. I've had the privilege of working here for 6 years. It's been a partnership for 6 years, as far as I'm concerned. But it's been a partnership with this board, with our committee members who are, you know, give their time every day. But you've been the conductor there, the guy, or who's the guy, the conductor, the orchestra leader. That's you. And you really kept us all going and focused on where we need to be every day. And we're going to miss that part of you. But we know you're coming back. You're going to be kicking around here and doing things. We've got a lot for you to do as well. So don't enjoy that retirement too much.
Al and I are gonna form a union, I think.
So,
Chris, can I say one more thing?
yes,
You know, growing a business is difficult, and one of my mentors for a very long time was a gentleman by the name of Gary Lombardi, who was an attorney, very well respected in the business community, and he was more of a father figure to me. And we lost him a few years ago. It's been very difficult. And one thing he always said to me was, I don't want you signing a Valentine's Day card until I approve it. And I didn't have that anymore, so Mr. Cuevas became that surrogate father for me, and a lot of the things that I have a tendency to just say things and then worry about the ramifications afterwards. That I started to run them by him ahead of time, and he'd kind of go. So, Mike, it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
so with that, I'll take a motion to adjourn to executive session.
So moved.
And a second?
Second?
Moving second, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? We move into executive session. We do not believe there'll be any business afterwards. We welcome to stay, but